Acceptance is not agreement.
Hmm.
Okay, I can accept you and
Yes.
make you feel like you belong in this classroom, like you belong in this community, and not agree with anything you do. I don't agree with the way you vote. I don't agree with the way you worship. I don't agree with the way that you handle your relationships and your family dynamic. I don't agree with it.
Hi, I'm Crystal Loose, Professor of Education.
And I'm Aimee Ketchum, pediatric occupational therapist.
Welcome to Plant the Seed of Learning, the podcast where we merge education and medical models to bring you science-based, practical insights on all things education.
Whether you're a parent, teacher, therapist, or policymaker, we're here to help you support children from the start. Today we have Dr. Orinthia Harris, known as Dr. O. We are so excited to have you today. So
Yeah.
let me tell our audience, our listeners, a little bit about you. Dr. O is a passionate educator, dynamic speaker, and founder of STEMearly, with over 20 years of experience in early childhood education, STEM, leadership, and equity-centered professional development. She empowers educators and organizations with practical tools that strengthen teaching, support belonging, and improve outcomes for young learners. A sought-after national speaker, Dr. O has shared her expertise in STEM, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and holistic education with audiences across the country, including NAEYC, DEC, and NHSA. Her thought leadership includes co-authoring the award-winning Little Learners, Big Hearts, and its accompanying Leader's Guide. Dr. O earned her doctorate in educational leadership from Notre Dame of Maryland University and continues to be a powerful voice for equity, compassion, and innovation in early childhood education. And I can attest to that because we met when we were both presenting at NACE, and I had the pleasure of sitting in on Dr. O's presentation
Yay.
and witnessing your passion firsthand. So welcome. So
Thank
happy to have
you.
you.
Thank you for having me. I'm
Welcome.
super excited to be here. And thank you for the work that you all are doing in the early childhood space. It's so necessary. So thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Excellent. So we like to start with a fact or fiction. So, Crystal, is this fact or fiction? The best way to raise children who value diversity is to avoid talking about differences.
Oh, that's definitely fiction.
Definitely fiction. Children naturally notice differences. When trusted adults talk openly, positively, and age appropriately about diversity, children are more likely to develop empathy, respect, and a sense of belonging. And I think too many parents think, let's just not talk about this.
Yep.
So we make this not, and in doing that, we're not giving children the language they need to discuss it. So we are so excited to jump into this. Dr. O, I know you have
Yay.
many opinions
Thank
on this
you.
topic.
Yeah, this is
Yeah,
so great. Let's dig right in. I've been looking forward to this recording for a while now, so I
Yay.
can't wait to hear your responses and to learn so much from you. You
Let's
said
go.
your mission is to build bridges for belonging. What does the belonging look like in an early childhood classroom? And what are some simple things any teacher or parent can do tomorrow to help every child feel like they belong?
So, wow, that's like, let's start right from the gate. So,
oh yeah.
belonging in the early childhood classroom looks like a place where everyone can just be, where they can exist, where they can be who they are and be loved for who they are, where we give children, like you mentioned, Amy, the language to celebrate difference. And when children notice difference and they are able to talk about it and see the beauty in all different types of learners, all different types of races, all different types of languages, then children can really understand what it means to truly belong. When we don't give the language for
Mhm.
difference, we actually inadvertently demonize difference because what is seen is celebrated, what is talked about is valued, and what is not is not. And so you're
Mhm.
inadvertently teaching children to not create spaces where everyone belongs. So you said, what is something practical that early childhood educators can do in their classroom tomorrow. So we have two practical acronyms. I'll probably get into them later in the conversation, but I'll just start with the 3 C's that we talk about in our Teaching Beyond Labels series, which is a series we do where we go around the nation and hopefully soon the world, and we teach early childhood educators the 3 C's of belonging, and that's compassion, connection, and confidence, right? Compassion is seeing the child for who they are, not for who you want them to be, right?
Mm,
Yes.
Start there. All right.
mhm,
And then connection is, how can I connect with every child and every family in this classroom, especially
mhm.
the children that I don't particularly care for? Because away with
Yeah.
the notion that we like all of our students, we don't. And that's okay because you're human. You
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
human. Some
Yes.
students get under our skin. So, what I like to say is, I'm not called to like all my students, but I am called to love all my students. And in order to love all my students, I have to find connection. Where is the connection point with that child or that family? How can I reframe the behavior that is causing them to annoy me? Right? How can I reframe what I see that's causing me to kind of put them in a box? And we put children in boxes. We do
For
because we're
sure.
human. But the
Mhm.
connection piece will enable us to get them out of that box. So we start with compassion. I am going to love all my students. Regardless of whether or not I like them, I'm going to love them all. And in order to love them, I got to find a place of connection. I got
Yeah.
to find that, which means I got to do my due diligence, do my research. And I got plenty of stories about that. And then the last C is confidence. I have to have the mindset, the growth mindset, that no matter how difficult this classroom is, this child is, this family is, I
Mhm.
can, in that span of one teaching year, do
Mhm.
what I need to do to make a difference. I may not change everything. I may not end, issues of,
Mhm.
racism or issues of exclusion. But with this one child in my classroom, with these children, I absolutely can make a difference. So you start with the 3 C's of belonging, which is
Right.
compassion, connection, and confidence. And you apply those 3 C's to every student and every family in your classroom.
That is amazing. And I really love how you touch upon growth mindset and connect it to confidence in
Hmm.
making a difference. I've
Yeah.
heard about growth mindset for years and years as a classroom teacher and administrator, but we always looked at it as, you're teaching kids not to give up. But we
Mm.
never really think about it from the teacher aspect of
Yes.
don't give up on these kids. You
Yes.
can do
Yes.
it. You're going to make a difference.
Yep.
And if you make those connections with the
Hmm.
students, no, and I love how you talk about the students you dislike or not dislike, but the ones you can't connect with.
You can't
You
connect
find
with.
you find a way to connect with them, and it does make a world of
It
difference.
makes a
And
difference.
you have a
It
better year going forward.
And you can't connect with students that you don't have the mindset that you can connect with
Yeah.
them. So you
Yeah.
cannot implement. I always tell my teachers, you are the intervention,
Yeah.
because I don't care what intervention it is, conscious discipline, the pyramid model. There's so many amazing early childhood models, right? But you're the intervention. So no matter how good the intervention is, if you are implementing with a mindset that this child cannot do it, you will never implement it with fidelity, which means you have to acknowledge where you are with that child, because you cannot abolish what you will not acknowledge. I have to acknowledge I am not connecting with this kid. I don't particularly care for this kid.
Mhm.
Acknowledge it, put it out there, and then say, okay, how can I connect with this child? Because I know that I need to connect with this child because this child can.
Mhm.
Period. End of story. This child can. And if you don't have the mindset, it doesn't matter how good the strategy is, because you are not going to, you're going to implement it with a
Mhm.
fixed mindset, and that is going to negate the strategy. You know how many people come to me and say, oh gosh, Dr. O, conscious discipline doesn't work. And I'm like, conscious discipline absolutely works. It is a research based strategy. Oh, Dr. O, the pyramid model doesn't work. It doesn't work. I'm like, you know
Uh-huh.
how many years of research went into that? It works. So then I say, let me come to your classroom and let me observe you as
Yeah.
you implement these strategies.
Great.
Right off the bat, it's the mindset, it's how you're doing it. You
Uh-huh.
don't believe that this child can succeed, and that is a problem.
Hmm.
Ooh,
And you're
so
giving
good.
you're giving teachers permission to acknowledge the fact that some children will push their buttons.
Yes.
And
Why
it's
do we not do
okay.
that in early childhood? We feel like everything is rainbows and ponies. And if you're a kindergarten teacher and you say a child is getting under my skin, or you don't particularly care for a child's family, then somehow that makes you a bad teacher. And so
Right.
what teachers do is they suppress it,
Yeah.
and they don't understand and they don't recognize that their subconscious bias towards this child that they are suppressing is negatively impacting how they serve this child, versus just outright acknowledging,
Yeah.
hey, this particular family, this particular child, this particular behavior, which is a developmentally appropriate behavior, but somehow, since we grew up in a different era, spilling milk was something you didn't do. And if you spill milk at 3, then that makes you, and that gets under our skin. Or why don't you know how to zip up your coat right now? You got to admit, a 3-year-old not being able to zip up their coat is really frustrating. But a 3-year-old not being able to zip up their coat is developmentally appropriate. So,
Yeah.
what do I need to do? Because this is not the 3-year-old's problem at this point.
Exactly.
It's mine
Yeah.
to fix
Yes.
with a mindset.
Exactly. And
Right.
I'm so glad you used the word bias and brought that up, because I think so many people get very reactive to that word. Well, I'm not biased. I'm certainly not biased. But I want to reiterate, if you have a brain, you have bias because of all the experiences that you have
Mhm.
experienced in your lifetime coming together make you think a certain way. And it
Mhm.
makes me think about a study that was done years ago where they had teachers watch children
Mhm.
on a video. I'm sure you know of this, Dr.
Yep.
O and Crystal. They watched a
Mhm.
video
Yeah.
of children interacting in a classroom, and they were told to look for the challenging behaviors. And the teachers overwhelmingly looked at the children that were minority children in that classroom, children of
Hmm.
color. They
Yeah.
specifically looked at the boys in the classroom, and the catch was there were no challenging behaviors. The children were just interacting. But the same was true of white teachers, black teachers. They
Mhm.
overwhelmingly looked at the children of color. And they,
Hmm.
that's something we have to acknowledge is what brings in that bias. And when we anticipate challenging behavior from certain children, we, like you said, we put them in boxes and we start to limit their accessibility to advantages. They get recess taken away. They get put in
Yep.
different seating away from other children where their learning is potentially compromised. And we have to examine, is it us? Is it our bias? Or is it truly something, that was a challenging behavior? So again, I'm so glad you brought up that word, and I wanted to put that out there. I know we're going down a rabbit hole, but there's so much we
There's
can
so
delve
much.
into here.
Yeah.
So much.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So okay, so I want to shift gears just a little because you're so diverse and there's so many things we want to talk about. You have a very unique background in both STEM education and social emotional learning. And many people see these two things as very separate subjects. So let's talk about why you believe they actually go hand in hand, especially in the early years.
Okay, so STEM is a framework, right? It's not a curriculum, it's not a book. It is a framework for teaching children how to solve problems. That's all it is. Science, technology, engineering, math, using those as frameworks for helping children solve problems. Whenever we encounter a problem, we do not leave our brains at home. And since in the early childhood space, the brain, the back of the brain is fully formed at birth, how do children solve problems? They do not solve problems with their frontal lobe because they can't, because the frontal lobe is not fully developed.
Mhm.
They solve problems in the limbic system, in the brain stem, in the emotional part of the brain,
Mhm.
which means skills like self-regulation, skills like all those executive functioning skills have to go hand in hand when we're teaching children how to problem solve. The problem is in early childhood, we either stray away from STEM because we feel like, oh, STEM is, it's for higher academics, or we feel like, oh, we can't focus on STEM because we got to focus on this executive functioning because this is so important. And my argument is that they go hand in hand.
I do.
When you are teaching a child to solve a problem. You are teaching them also all of the executive functioning skills that go along with solving that problem, right? And so if you create STEM challenges where it's going to be outside of that zone of proximal development where it's not too hard so they get frustrated, but it's not too easy, like right in that zone of development, you're going to create a level of frustration in students, and that's okay. So now we talk about how do we deal with frustration. So instead of isolating things like our emotions and how we're feeling and how we're like Castle's framework, like how those social emotional skills, like how we're relating to ourselves, how we're relating to others, instead of isolating those skills and trying to teach a separate SEL curriculum, we can actually teach all of those skills inside of STEM, right? You give them a STEM challenge that's seeped in technology, that's seeped in math, that's seeped in science, seeped in art, right? And then as they are going through those challenges and those big emotions come up, this is where we can talk about it. This is where we can teach. Like everybody always says, I don't have time for one more thing. And the problem is we are isolating too many things and not seeing the cross, discipline of what it is we're trying to do in early childhood, right? And so the soft skills and the hard skills go together because when's the last time the brain was segregated? We don't say, oh, well, now I'm going to be logical and now I'm going to be emotional. No, your logics and your emotions coexist all the time. And so let's start early by training children as their brains are developing the skills of problem solving, developing those frontal lobe skills. Let's also teach them how to use those executive functioning skills to interact with STEM because it's not something that is just relegated. Like I'm telling you, when my kids were little, I used to take the challenges that I saw at MIT and RIT and things like that, and I would just, bring them down to a low floor and say, okay, kids, let's do this together. And they would do it. We had a whole pool party when my child turned 10. We had a whole pool party because MIT does the great boat challenge, right? And the students have to create a boat and they have to have a team get in it and they have to row across the pool, right? Okay, so maybe we're not doing all the intricate math that they do at MIT, but I most certainly can put out cardboard, I can put out duct tape, and I can say, you guys got to create a boat and an oar and you got to row it across the pool. Now, think about things like density, buoyancy, things like that. And then, of course, everybody's going to get mad because they're not listening. And he's not, okay, so let's talk about working together. Let's talk about teamwork. Like, we can do this. And STEM is a great vehicle if we would just embrace it for the framework that it is in early childhood, because a lot of early childhood teachers are already doing it. They just don't know. They just don't know.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you frame it that way because people do think that like STEM is something for high school, middle school, and really just cultivating that early sense of wonder and curiosity is early STEM. You
Yep.
talk about that a lot. Yeah.
Yep.
You are singing my song. I agree thoroughly. Walking in so many classrooms on a weekly basis, I'm in and out. And I often, and I have been wondering why do we need to implement a social and emotional curriculum when we can do just what you said through STEM, through math, through literacy, through anything we're teaching, we can teach those social and emotional skills and address problem solving and so many of those core issues. And I'm thinking, you
Good
made me
point,
think
Crystal.
back to FOSS kits, which probably, I don't know if everyone has heard of these, but when I first started teaching in the 90s, we had these FOSS kits and they were STEM, totally 100% STEM based learning. But through these lessons, we talked about social and emotional learning. We talked about mathematics. We talked about science properties. And then all of a sudden they went away. It was the weirdest thing. And
Huh.
of course, the pendulum swung and we grabbed hold of another initiative. But sometimes we need to look at what we're doing in the classroom setting and
Yep.
why it is successful and why we need to continue to implement it. And yeah, maybe we need to pivot in
Yep.
some areas, but yeah, great job. I love what you're
Agreed.
saying. So important. And your book, Getting Uncomfortable, and let's see, anti-racism and mindfulness challenges educators, which I love, to
Mhm.
reflect on themselves. We talked a little bit about that earlier, the
Mhm.
importance of knowing the why behind what you're doing. What's one misconception teachers often have about creating inclusive classrooms, and how can they begin doing better without feeling overwhelmed because they are so overwhelmed today?
Okay, so when we're talking about anti-racism and bias and things like that, I think the biggest misconception that teachers have, not just early childhood teachers, but teachers all over, is that acceptance is agreement. Acceptance is not agreement.
Hmm.
Okay, I can accept you and
Yes.
make you feel like you belong in this classroom, like you belong in this community, and not agree with anything you do. I don't agree with the way you vote. I don't agree with the way you worship. I don't agree with the way that you handle your relationships and your family dynamic. I don't agree with it. In fact, I'm vehemently opposed to it. Right. But
Mm-hmm.
in education, it doesn't matter because I did not sign up to agree with you. I signed up to accept you and create a space for you to feel like you belong. And the problem is that there are families that we serve in early childhood education where we don't agree with them. We don't agree with their religion. We don't agree with their political affiliation. We don't agree with their family dynamics. And we feel like, man, if I create a space for belonging for this child and this family, that means I agree with what they're doing. No,
No.
it doesn't. Acceptance is not agreement.
Yes.
I am I am an educator to create a space for you to belong. Why? Because I like you? No. I need to create a space for you to belong because, according to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the number one need of every child is to feel safety and belonging. You
Yes.
cannot learn if you do not feel like you belong.
Right.
So, as an educator, it is my responsibility to ensure that you belong. And I don't have to agree with you in order to do that. I have to accept you. So how do you accept someone where you like, okay, Dr. O, but I really do like wholeheartedly like disagree with them. Like it's like a part of my faith and my religion. And it's really, you have to find a point of connection. And you have to be of the mindset that in order for this child to learn, right? Because that's what you want. That's the ultimate goal for all the students in my class to learn. And if that's not your ultimate goal, then that we need to have another conversation. But if the ultimate goal is for every child in my class to learn, I have to ensure they feel like they belong. I
Mm.
have to. And you don't have to particularly agree with or care for how the student or the family engages. I have a student, story time, real quick. I had a student long time ago, everybody say long time ago, when I first started teaching. And this student got under my skin. At the time, my name was Miss Jones. And this kid would come in every day and he'd be like, Miss Jones, Miss Jones, Miss Jones, Miss Jones, Miss Jones. And I feel like he would do everything to get on my nerves, everything. And I was like, and this kid was never absent. He was always there and he was always under my skin. Well, fast forward to a few years ago, this kid found me on Facebook and he said, "Is this Miss Jones? Miss Jones?" He typed it out, Miss Jones, Miss Jones, Miss Jones. And I can feel my heart going, oh my gosh. He proceeded to write me the nicest Facebook message. He was like, Miss Jones, oh my God, you're my favorite teacher. You did
Oh,
this and you did that. So remember the corner you made for me to do my homework and da 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 da. He wrote me the nicest note. And that's when I knew you're a good educator because this kid did not need to know that he got under my skin. He did not need to know
Wow.
that. And he said,
Right.
and Miss Jones, I know I was bad because everybody in the building said I was a bad kid, but you never said I was a bad kid. And you made this space for me to do my work. And I'm thinking in my brain, that space was a strategy.
yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, because I'm trying to find out what points of connection I can have with this kid so that I don't treat him like everyone else is treating him in the building. Did I particularly care for this kid in my classroom? No. Was I counting down the days till June? Yes. But did he know it? No, to the sum total that 20 plus years later, he writes me a note of how I was his favorite teacher,
Wow.
which proves that acceptance is not agreement. And if you find points of connection and you ensure that every child feels like they belong, they can learn. That
Yeah.
is our responsibility. So
Right.
you have to find those points of connection and you have to be of the mindset that every child can feel like they belong in my class. And if you don't have that mindset, you are also saying every child can't learn because you cannot learn unless you feel like you belong. And that is neuroscience. Because if I don't feel safe with you and I don't feel like you like me as a teacher, you might as well be Charlie Brown's teacher up there going womp, 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 because I
Yeah.
ain't listening. Because you don't like me, lady.
Right.
You don't like me, sir.
Uh-huh.
So we have to make sure that as we're looking at our classrooms, that everyone feels like they belong here.
Yeah.
It's so true. My sister-in-law is, and this is really quick because I know
Mm-hmm.
we're hitting 30 minutes already. She's a teacher, and last year she got the class that you don't
Mm-hmm.
want to have. She got,
Yep.
I swear, every bad kid in the school was in her
Mm-hmm.
classroom. And she
So hard.
said to me, I don't know how I'm going to make it. But she made connections with every one of those kids. And by the end of the year, she was exhausted, but she was getting notes from these kids about what a difference she made in their lives. And she hangs them on her fridge. And that's what education's all
It
about.
is.
Yeah.
It is. It is. And really looking at these children, if behavior is communication,
Yes. Absolutely.
right? If
Yes.
behavior is communication, and it absolutely is, what are these students that we are labeling bad children
Yeah.
communicating?
Yes.
Let's dig into that communication and then let's find points of connection because we are of the mindset that everybody can learn, everybody can grow in their own unique way, and we are responsible for finding those ways, finding those connections. How come, you have those good teachers, right? And then they say, oh, let's give all the bad kids to those teachers, but then those kids are no longer bad.
I
So
know. It's
was it
amazing.
so was it the kid or was it the lack of connection?
The
Absolutely.
the environment matters.
The environment. And I think
Yeah.
now there are so many of us are trauma informed, or at least
Hmm.
have a better understanding of where children come from matters so much in their performance in school. And I think so many of us are better at, instead of thinking initially, what's wrong with you, to
Hmm.
changing that mind frame to what happened to you,
Hmm. Hmm.
that we're in this situation today. And when you can sort of come from a place of compassion, it definitely helps with that connection as well. I think,
Mhm.
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, you just mentioned one of my favorite books that's back there, and I say it should be required reading for every person that teaches children birth
Agree.
through It's called What Happened to You by Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey. If you teach early childhood, anything from birth to kindergarten, birth to first grade, even birth to third grade, you need to read that book. It's
Yep.
just because it reframes how you see students.
Yes.
And that is so important in order to create these classrooms of belonging. It's the first step is the reframe of the mindset of the teacher because the teacher is the intervention.
Hmm. Beautifully
Great.
said. And
Thanks for
and we're
sharing.
still, COVID is still in the recent past, and children are still recovering from so much disruption that happened in such formative years in their lives. And
Yeah.
I've said this before, my daughter is a kindergarten teacher, and I go into her classroom and oh Lord,
Hmm.
I mean, I go in as guest reader, but I'm secretly sizing up who needs OT in here. And I tell you what, these children, the needs are deep, and it can be very challenging on one teacher with 25 children
Hmm.
to meet those needs and ensure success in every child. And yeah, it takes a lot of work on our part
Yes.
as the educators and therapists and parents and so forth. If you were to walk into a classroom, I'm just curious, imagine walking into a preschool or kindergarten classroom for just 10 minutes, Dr. O. What would
Mhm.
you look for that would tell you this is a place where children are thriving?
So before I would look for things, I would listen.
Mm,
Mm,
I would listen. What are the children saying? to them, to each other, to and about themselves, to their teacher, and how is the teacher speaking to the children? I'm looking for tone, I'm looking for tenor, I'm looking for verbiage, right? Because that matters. Because you can have all the diverse books in the world, you can have all the diverse dolls in the world, you can have all the flags represented, you can have all the languages up, and the classroom is beautiful, and those things are great. But what are you saying? Because words are things. Words have power, presence, prophetic implication, no geographic location. You can speak a word and change your world. And people are like, no, you can't. I promise you, if you go speak certain words to your boss tomorrow, your employment status will change, right? So words do matter. So
Yeah.
what are you speaking over children? How are you talking to them? Are you teaching down to them? Are you looking down at them? Are you snarky? Are you distant? Do the children not even, like, young children gravitate? That's just what they do. They're always touching you. They're always around you. When you go in to read a story, you got one on your heel and one on your lap, and some of them are just like doing this to your hair, because that's innate in children. When
Absolutely.
I don't see that, and I see lots of distance between a teacher and students, that is a red flag.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to get close to you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm there for 45 minutes, and no random 3-year-old, no random 4-year-old just randomly comes up to you and hugs your leg.
Yep.
They go sit on the carpet, and I'm also looking for developmentally inappropriate practices that hinder belonging.
Oh.
And there's so many practices that we do that hinder that sense of belonging for early childhood educators. And then we implement these developmentally inappropriate practices. And then when the children act at the age that they are, we label them bad.
Yeah.
So it's not that the students are bad, it's that you are asking them to do developmentally inappropriate things. Classrooms where students feel like they belong, they feel like they can just be, right? They don't have to look over their shoulders. I know, I'm not sure if you know, but in August, a lot of Black people go to Martha's Vineyard, which is up in the New England area. And that historically has been a place where Black people of means have been able to vacation, even during the Jim Crow South, safely, right? And so people go there, and it's a big thing, and I go too. It's really nice to see at night just a ton of Black teenagers just walking around. And no one's looking over their shoulder. No one's afraid of the police, nothing. They're just able to be. Well, when I look at that, and I look at that as classroom, like from a classroom perspective, if I have a classroom of 20 kindergartners and they're afraid to be 5,
Yeah.
they're literally afraid to do things that 5-year-olds do.
Mm-hmm.
You have not created a space where children belong. Like, my Black teenagers can go to Martha's Vineyard in August and walk around in the middle of the night with a hoodie on, and I'm not scared, and they're not scared. They can't do that everywhere in the US, and we know that, right? Why? Because at Martha's Vineyard, it's a space has been curated for Black teenagers to just be, right? Well, what about our classrooms?
Yeah.
Why can't my 5-year-olds just be 5?
Yeah.
You got them sitting crisscross applesauce on a carpet for 15 minutes. And because they can't do it, and they're rolling around, and they can't, they can't contain themselves.
Yep.
Now they're bad. So again, if I'm walking into a classroom and I'm looking for belonging, I know what a typical 5-year-old looks like. I know what a typical 5-year-old speaks like. And if I don't see that, 5-year-olds don't say I'm so stupid. They don't say that.
Mm-hmm.
No.
That's not developmentally appropriate and or natural. That is a trauma response.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
5-year-olds don't sit still and are robots for 40 minutes.
Right.
So I got to be something else to be labeled good in your classroom.
Yeah.
That's not belonging.
Yeah.
And I don't care how many diverse books you got and how many flags you got, and all those things are great. But again, the teacher is the intervention. Have you created a space where children are allowed to be, where they feel safe
Yes.
being children.
It's
Absolutely. That's
so
such a
true.
beautiful analogy. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing
Mhm.
that. Yeah.
I love what you're saying because I've been in so many classrooms over 25 years, and I will say you can spot the teachers that display the characteristics that you're speaking about
Yeah.
because the children thrive in their classrooms.
Hmm.
And not only are the children happy, the teachers happy
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
they're creating this beautiful culture.
yeah,
Sure.
So we also worry about parents, and parents really worry about what they're doing in
yeah.
the home and that they're not doing enough for their children. We've talked a lot about teachers. Let's kind of segue now to parents. What are a few everyday moments at home that build both a child's confidence and curiosity without buying expensive gadgets or programs?
Yeah.
There's so many things that parents can do at home. First of all, I think parents need to understand the neuroscience behind play. Unstructured, uninterrupted play develops the brain more than anything else, more than 5 million worksheets and YouTube videos could ever do. The whole idea of go outside and play, the whole idea of, oh, if I go outside and play, I'm going to be bored, that is good
Hmm.
because the bored brain will find something to do.
Yeah.
And so I think instead of as parents feeling like, oh my God, we got to do more, no, you got to do less, which means
Yes.
make them go outside
Yes.
and say, figure it out.
Hmm.
Now,
Mhm.
are they going to have a whole tantrum and a whole fit and look in the window for 10 minutes and bang on the door and ask you for their phone or their iPad or their PlayStation every 5 minutes? Yes, because that's what they've been trained to.
Yeah.
But the more you do it, right? There's a doctor I follow, and she says this is when the system sets in, right? When we do it enough, when we say, my kids know tech turnoff time. It's tech turnoff time. That means we're outside if the weather is nice or we're inside if it's not, and there are no screens. I'm talking no audiobooks. There
Mhm.
is you and whatever you can find.
Mhm.
And they have come up with some of the most creative games. They've fixed things. They've made things out of sticks and twigs and things like that. I don't think parents understand the neuroscience behind go outside and figure it out.
Mhm.
Everything does not have to be a structured activity. And listen, my husband would be like, "Can you please write that on the board and sign it because I am the queen of a structured activity." Okay? So I'm not saying this as someone that doesn't have to do it myself and have to reframe like the amount of times that I want to hijack my children's play because I see that this could be a great teachable moment
Yeah.
that I have to stop back and say, stop.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Let them. Somebody had a, tattoo that said, let them. Basically, just let them be kids. Let the brain develop. The brain needs to deal with boredom.
Hmm.
The brain needs to deal with unstructured time. That's why recess has been implemented. And it's really sad that, it's being cut and cut and
Mhm.
cut and cut and cut, especially in the early childhood. But there's
Yeah.
so much that children learn by just existing in spaces. And I'm like, oh, but that's
Mhm.
not enough, Dr. O. I need something. Okay, I'm gonna tell you what I used to do with my kids. During tech time when they were little, when they were smaller, probably like fifth grade, I'm sorry, 5 years old and younger, I would collect recyclable materials, and I have a ton. And I would put out these trays, and on the trays, I would have old lids. I would save the lids from all my old bottles. I would have toilet paper rolls, empty toilet paper rolls. I would have some type of adhesive, whether it's duct tape, glue, things like that, crayons. And I would just, Reggio Emilia philosophy calls it a provocation, right? So I would set up these provocations on my tables and with some books, and I would just leave it. And I would say, it's free time. You're free to use whatever you want on the table, however you want, or not at all. And there are times where my kids would just, play in the living room and jump on the sofa or, whatever. They would figure it out. The problem is that we have been trained in the United States that everything has to be structured. Like, long gone are the days where kids just gathered in the front of the yard and played a game of baseball. Now you got to be on Little League, you know? Long gone are the days where kids just came over and figured it out. And that is something that is missing, that parents can commit to bringing it back and just commit for an hour a day. If you can't do two, do an hour. This is an hour of unstructured, free play. Mommy can't play with you. Mommy can't help you. Mommy's going to make sure you're safe, but because they look to you to provide entertainment, because the tablet and the phone and the TV are providing entertainment. The Little League, the this cheer, that club is all providing structure. The brain needs unstructured playtime so that it can develop.
Amen. We are all about bringing back boredom, aren't we?
Yeah. Yes, we are.
Oh,
Bring back boredom.
I
For
know.
sure.
So important. And talk about structure. This is what's happening in our classroom settings. We're
Yep.
over structured. We're using scripted programs. And what has gone away is the freedom and the liberty to be creative. And that's what I'm worrying about right now. That's an area I'm researching. We need to do more to allow children to express themselves.
Yeah.
Amen. Yeah.
For sure.
So, looking ahead, I'm curious, Dr. O, what gives you the most hope for the future of early childhood education? And tell us one change you believe could have the biggest impact on children over the next decade.
So, what gives me the most hope is the teachers, right? So, teachers keep coming back. We hear all this negative, the world of education is going to hell in a handbasket and things are crazy and all the things. These teachers are still coming back year after year. One of the teachers that I love, I just saw her yesterday. I said, "What year is this for you?" In second grade, 23, 23, right? So teachers are still coming back. They still are dedicated to this work, to this field, right? And although we are experiencing attrition and turnover and all the things, let's not let that negative news cloud us from the fact that teachers are still showing up day in and day out. These schools are full of teachers who care, teachers who want to be there, teachers who are just like, hey, I want to be here, but things are crazy. Give me some strategies. And I would say this, the one thing that can change the next generation for children in the classroom is the mindset of the teacher. Period. End of story. If teachers can develop the growth mindset and the efficacy that says, while you are in my class, you are going to feel loved and you are going to feel like you belong. You may not pass this class with an A. You may not leave this class knowing all 50 sight words, but you are going to know that you are valued, that you are seen, and that you are important. And that can do more for a child than any academic skill, because let's be clear, academic skills can be taught over time. The hardest thing is developing in the child the mindset and the belief system that says, I can learn. So if early childhood educators just dedicate themselves to growing a mindset that says all students can learn, and all of my students are smart, and I'm going to pass that on to everybody that comes into my building, into my room, whether or not that they get on my nerves or not, whether or not I agree with their family or not. I am going to be of the mindset that all students are valuable and they all can learn. You do that, you change a whole generation. You change a whole generation with just that mindset. And again, the student doesn't know the sight words. What are you saying for them? You don't know the sight words yet. You'll get them. I
Mm.
know you're struggling. I know it's hard. I know you're sad. And I know you didn't get it this time. But listen, I promise you, you can do it. Remember the research that was done where they took children they said to them, this one group of students, that you know you're GT, you do everything right. And then they did another group of students and says, you guys are great problem solvers and you can learn anything. And then they gave these two groups impossible puzzles to solve. The group that they were told that they were GT, they gave up because they didn't want to disprove that they were GT, right? The
Mhm.
group that they said you can learn anything, these kids, even when the timer beat, these kids were begging for the opportunity to continue to work on this impossible to solve puzzle because they believed that they could do it. So it's not about praising giftedness.
Mhm.
It's about praising the child for their innate ability because
Mhm.
every child can learn. Every child is smart in their own unique way. We just got to get them to believe it because as adults, I don't need to be a genius in, you know, chemical engineering because that's not what I do.
Right.
I'm a genius in what I do. So did I struggle in math? Absolutely. But did that make me not smart? No. And I had to learn that. And I
Mhm.
think that's what took me so long to finish my advanced degree is because I had to get out of the belief system that I wasn't smart enough because I didn't get A's in math. Because statistics was hard for me.
Mhm.
But the earlier educators can put the belief in every child that
Mhm.
you can learn
Mhm.
and you are smart, these kids will change the world. They'll be like the kids with the impossible puzzle. Like, no, we can fix it. We can do it. And imagine if we had a generation of kids that were committed to fixing things like systemic racism,
Mhm.
things like environmental issues,
Mhm.
things like crime, those types of things,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And it's the teachers that show up day in and day out that can say, listen, I may not have all the tools I want. I may not have all the curriculum I want. I definitely don't have all the money that I want, but mindset over money all day long
Oh, you gave me
because the
goosebumps.
mindset, yeah, the mindset is what is going to change not just the generation, but it'll change the teacher too. And then they'll find that burnout and that stress decreasing because now they're not going in there as the child's savior and they got to save the world of education and they got to do all this and put all this undue burden on themselves and feel like they got to sacrifice their whole life on the altar of early childhood education.
Right.
No, they're coming in saying, it is my job to make every child feel loved, feel like they belong, and know that they absolutely can learn. And we
Oh
can
my
do that.
God.
Oh,
Yeah.
on that note,
Oh,
yeah,
thank
amazing.
you.
I love it.
Amazing.
Growth mindset,
What more can we
belonging.
say?
Beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that lovely ending and for your wonderful advice. I was
Thank
writing
you.
furiously because I
Yay.
agree with so much of what you're saying, and it just resonated in my heart.
Appreciate it. Yay. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
This has been
So,
fun.
yes,
Thank you so much
thank
for being
you.
with us today.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We
Thank
want to
y'all.
thank you for listening to Plant the Seed of Learning. We want to thank our guests, past and present, for sharing their knowledge and work. A special thank you to our producer, Penn Ketchum. You can find our podcast wherever you listen on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. We can't wait to learn from you and plant more seeds of learning together.
Yes. Awesome. This was great. Thank you, ladies.
Thanks for coming.